I welcome you to the program, which is entitled Integrative Theology. Whether you say integrated or integrative, it still symbolizes the same thing. Integrative means that it is already compound with what is a part of it. Integrated also deals with the condition. And so both words can be applied. I am your host, Bishop Dr. Derek A. Reeves, and this is our third supplemental lecture to Lecture 5. Lecture 5 was Constructing Knowledge Using Logic. Supplemental Lecture 3 is going to deal with Omniscient Omneitous Qualia. This is a very interesting terminology, and you may hear me say many things are interesting, and that's because the mind that God moves and breathes on within me is always questioning, always seeking understanding. And so when we deal with the omneitous or the omniscient omneitous qualia, we have to first begin to, and you have to excuse me, my mind is moving, and because we do most of these things unscripted. And so many things are running through my mind. But when I speak of the omniscient qualia of God, that in and of itself, we have to begin here because, first of all, we understand omniscience is all-knowing. It is all scientia. Every science that exists, God understands it from past, present, and future. God operates in it, and God has imparted it in part to mankind to know, to endeavor, and to seek to understand his reality. But when we speak of omniscient qualia, it's a very tricky phrase because qualia basically comes in man as man with his senses then receives the sensory mechanisms or the sensory information from the senses such as sight, smelling, taste, hearing, and feeling. And because God does not have a somatic structure as we have, I'm not saying that God doesn't have form. It's just that we don't fully understand the form of someone who is eternally omnipresent and infinite. To describe this goes beyond our science, our technical knowledge. It goes beyond any capacity of man to think within the perimeters of the omneitous. And so the problem with this is that most consider qualia to be the reception of sensory impulses through the senses. And so when we deal with the omniscient, omneitous qualia of God, then we have to understand that God knows all things and God functions and God creates and he does all things by virtue of his word. Therefore, the omneitous qualia, or the omniscient omneitous qualia of God, then is the sensory mechanism of his eternal thought. Because he has always thought, and because the thought of thought, or the logos, is God's creative venue, the modality in which he creates, utilizing his mind and then verbalizing that mind through speech of some type. And as we said in previous tapes, he either thinks it telepathically or he verbalizes it in some fashion where the construct of his power would not destroy all things. And so the omniscient, omneitous qualia of God is God understanding by reason of the wisdom and the knowledge of his own mind. God then knows, and that's why God is conscious of everything he knows, because the mind of God was in the beginning. The mind of God was active in the beginning, and the word of God was with God and was God and is God. And this is the venue by which God chose to create the first power, which is awareness of all that he is, the Word, the operation of the very mind of God that brings reality into existence. And so the Omniscient Omneitous Qualia of God is the understanding of all that he has done, the understanding of all that he can do, and the understanding of who he is and the qualities that he also has within his own ability, his own will, his own substantial reality. This is all the time we have. I thank you. This has been Integrative Theology, and I am your host, Bishop Dr. Derek A. Reeves. Until next time.